Order, and if everybody would join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Thank you, everybody. Okay, first order of business tonight is a joint meeting with the school committee and town moderator to appoint a representative to the Neshoba Valley Technical District School Committee for a 3-year term ending 3/31. I'll invite the town moderator up to tell us all about it.
It is now 6 o'clock on the button. I call this joint committee meeting between the Chelmsford Select Board and the Chelmsford School Committee for the purpose of appointing a school committee, Chelmsford, Neshoba Valley Technical District School Committee position. And I declare for the record that we have a quorum. We have 4 Select Board members and 5 school committee members here. So at this point, I will entertain a motion for nominations.
I will nominate Lawrence McDonald.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Do we have any other nominations? There being none, I will close the nominations. I will ask the nominee if he wishes to make a few remarks.
Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I am Lawrence McDonald, and since this is my 4th term that I am going for, I believe you all know me by now. I will say that serving on the Neshoba Tech School Committee representing Chelmsford is one of the great honors of my life, and I'm eager to continue. And I don't want to belabor the meeting because I know you have much to get on with, but if anybody has any questions they wish to ask me, I'm available. Otherwise, I appreciate your support.
Any comments, questions, or discussion for Mr. McDonald? Seeing none, hand it back to the moderator.
So since he is the only nominee, unless anyone has any objection, I would recommend that we vote to approve him, and I'll entertain a motion to approve him by acclamation. Do I have such a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor of reappointing Lawrence McDonald as one of the representatives of the Neshoba Valley Technical High School Committee, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Just want to make a reminder that next Tuesday is Election Day, so I encourage everyone out there to vote. Thank you.
Okay, the next item is public service announcements, and I will hand this off to Pat in a moment, but there is one that I wanted to read myself.
Pat, on a point of order, do you need to announce it that we're...
Oh,
have a
I'm
live
sorry, you're right.
broadcast?
You're right, Jeff. We are recording this meeting, and it's being recorded by Chelmsford Telemedia, and so for the viewing public that are watching it tonight, that's fine, and then it's being recorded for future television presentation. So, thank you, Jeff. Okay, so public service announcements. I just have one that I wanted to do, and it's a proclamation in recognition of the 150th anniversary of Central Congregational Church of Chelmsford. Is there anybody here looking to receive that? I'll read this, but I wanted to read this because I'm close to Don and Jan Brigham. And I know we lost Jan last night. And Jan was 95 years old, and Don and Jan were devoted members of the Central Congregational since I was
And
a
way
little
before
guy.
I was.
And, yeah, so
Way before I moved here.
this couple, Dawn is still alive. Jan passed last evening at 95 years old, I believe. And this couple was married for 77 years and helped lead the church and do wonderful things over there. So I just wanted to put a little side note to that, and with that I will read the proclamation. In the Town of Chelmsford proclamation in recognition of the 150th anniversary of Central Congregational Church of Chelmsford. Whereas the Central Congregational Church of Chelmsford was founded in 1876 by residents seeking to create a place for worship, fellowship, and service in the town of Chelmsford. And whereas for 150 years, the church has served generations of families, offering guidance, compassion, and faith-centered community life while demonstrating steadfast commitment through charitable outreach, mission work, education, and support for those in need within Chelmsford and beyond. And whereas the church has played an important role in Chelmsford's civic and cultural life, providing a welcoming space for worship, reflection, celebration, and community gathering. And whereas the year 2026 marks the 150th anniversary of the Central Congregational Church of Chelmsford, honoring the faith, dedication, and perseverance of its founders, clergy, members, and supporters across generations. And whereas the anniversary celebrates the church's rich history and its continued mission to serve, inspire, and strengthen the community for generations to come. Now, therefore, we hereby recognize and celebrate the 150th anniversary of the Central Congregational Church of Chelmsford and extend sincere congratulations and best wishes to its clergy, congregation, and leadership as they commemorate this historic milestone on April 26, 2026. Signed this 30th day of March by the board. So congratulations on that. And
Thank you very much.
if you'd like to announce your name and say a few words.
My name is Glenn Dissinger. I've been a resident here in Chelmsford for about 17 years. I'm a member of the committee that is putting together our celebration plans. And so we are excited about the fact that we have an official proclamation from the town recognizing our celebration, which we will be conducting on the 25th and the 26th that weekend. And I also want to personally just say, on behalf of the church, we appreciate your personal comments about Don and Jan.
You're welcome.
Loss of Jan is it will be a hard funeral,
Yeah, it
a
was
celebratory one, but a very hard one.
understood. Yes, sir.
you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll turn it over to Pat for the rest of the public service announcements.
Actually, we have somebody here from the town clerk's office who is going to do the next one about the annual town election. Welcome Pam up to the microphone.
Welcome Pam Gilchrist.
Thank you. It's actually Pamela Connors now.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Thank you so much for having me. As was just mentioned, my name is Pam Connors. I am the assistant town clerk here in Chelmsford. And we just wanted to remind everybody that our annual town election is coming up quickly on April 7th, which as of the date of this meeting is 1 week from tomorrow. There is no in-person early voting for this election, but vote by mail is available. As of today, 6,749 voters have requested and received their mailed ballot. We have received back 2,118, which means 69% of those mailed ballots are still outstanding. So we strongly encourage voters to return their mailed ballots as soon as possible to make sure that they are received in time to be counted, especially whereas the post office does recommend allowing 7 days for delivery. Voters can also return their ballots via the drop boxes in front of Town Hall or directly to us in the clerk's office. All vote-by-mail ballots must be received in the clerk's office by 8 p.m. on April 7th in order to be counted. The final deadline to request a mailed ballot is tomorrow, March 31st at 5 p.m. If you plan to vote in person, polls are open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on April 7th. You can find your polling location, track your ballot, and more by visiting voteinma.com. Sample ballots are available on the town's website, And Chelmsford Telemedia has done a wonderful job of recording interviews and debates and televising those. And they can, that's with the candidates for townwide seats. And those can all be found on demand on Telemedia's website, chelmsfordtv.org. Any questions that voters have can be directed to us at the clerk's office via phone, email, or just stopping by the office. Do you guys have any questions for me or anything?
No questions.
All right, thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Pam Connors. Okay.
Okay, now I have a few.
Pat has a couple.
All right, now I have three more. Okay, the first is Chelmsford's Townwide Cleanup. The annual cleanup will be from Saturday, April 18th to Saturday, April 26th. Please join the town in cleaning up litter along the Chelmsford roads in your neighborhoods and other recreation areas in town. You can plan your cleanup, and volunteers are urged to wear bright-colored clothing to avoid stepping into the street while working. Whenever possible, bring your yellow bags to your home curbside, and they will be picked up with your regular trash. You can sign up at the DPW. There's a registration link on the town website and in the agenda that we have here. You can pick up your yellow bags at 9 Alpha Road between April 13th and April 24th during the hours, regular work hours there, which is Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 7 to 4, Tuesday, 7 to 6, and Friday, 7 a.m. to noon. Next, we have a spring annual town meeting beginning Monday, April 27th, 2026, not 2025, at 7:30 p.m. at the Senior Center at 75 Groton Road. The annual town meeting spring warrant is available now on the town's website. And reminder, any resident who's not an elected town meeting member may still attend the sessions of town meeting and participate in the question and answer and discussion portions of the proceedings. Links to the presentation and the Finance Committee's warrant book will be found on the town meeting webpage at least 1 week prior to town meeting. And the Chelmsford Friends of the Library are having their spring book sale on Friday, May 1st and Saturday, May 2nd. A large selection of fiction, nonfiction, children's books, DVDs, and CDs. There was a special members-only sale on Thursday, April 30th from 5 to 8 p.m. You do have to be a member of the Friends of the Library to buy on that day, but you can join that day if you wish to take advantage of the best selection. On Saturday, the sale will go from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., and from Saturday to 1 to 2 p.m., all teachers, educators, and literary groups can receive free books. And this book sale is held at the usual spot in town gym behind Town Hall. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Pat. Our next item on the agenda is general public input. I don't believe we have anybody on Zoom this evening. Is there any general public input in the audience? Seeing none, we'll move to the next item, which is committee vacancies. Pat?
Okay. Committee vacancies as of today. There's one vacancy on the following committees: the Age-Friendly Implementation Committee, the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, the CCA Town Hall Advisory Committee, the Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee, the Council on Aging Board, the Cultural Council, and the Military Community Covenant Task Force. There are 5 vacancies on the Commission on Disabilities, 4 vacancies on the Holiday Decorating Committee, and the Parade Committee, as you all know by now, welcomes all applicants for 1-year terms. Committee applications are available on the town website or through the town manager's office.
Thank you, Pat. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing for a wine and malt beverage restaurant license for Cree Hospitality LLC, DBA Cree Grill at 18 Boston Road, Suite 200. Do we have anybody here representing that firm? If you would kindly state your name and address for the record.
Hi all, my name is Brendan Pelly. I'm the chef and owner of Cree Grill, located at 18 Boston Road here in Chelmsford. And I'm also a lifelong resident of Chelmsford. I live on Vincent Road now. I grew up on Linwood Street back in the day. And we are opening a new Greek restaurant, casual counter service restaurant, and applying for beer and wine to complement the food at the restaurant.
Do we have any questions or comments or concerns for?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions on the capacity. One place you indicate that there's, I can't tell if you meant 24 or 26 inside and then 12 outside, but it looks like you have 36 inside.
We have 36 inside, so there was a little back and forth. And the restaurant is approved for 36 seats in total. So we are 38, excuse me, 38 in total. So we're doing a small rebuild, and we're going to do 36 seats inside, leaving only 2 seats outside. We may at some point try to get some additional seasonal seating outside, but as of right now, the plan is to do the 36 indoors.
With the 2 outside or no?
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
So total of 38?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I have another question. On your application, you said you want to serve beer and wine with cordials. Can you define a cordial?
So we actually struck that from
Okay.
that was on the original application. From what I understand, Chelmsford doesn't do cordial licenses.
Not separate,
Cordials being low alcohol content drinks for like mimosas and brunchy things in case we were going to do a brunchy type menu. It's not part of the business plan. So when I heard that the town doesn't really do cordial licenses, I just struck it. Beer and wine is sufficient. It's going to be a really small alcohol menu. It's going to be maybe like 2 or 3 Greek beers, maybe 4 Greek wines.
Okay, yeah, because other establishments, if they do cordials, they need an all-alcohol license, basically, instead of a beer and wine, which I think is a little bit more expensive, right? So,
It is, and it's really not about that for me. It's more like I
Okay.
don't want to manage a full alcohol program. I
Okay.
don't want to manage a bar.
okay, I just wanted, I saw that there. I saw it 2 places, so I wanted to confirm that. Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Have you developed the plans for your renovations at this point? Because I'm seeing
We have, yes.
that the Board of Health, the Fire Department, and the Police Department are all looking for those plans.
Yes. So we submitted the permit set for the building permit last Sunday. So it's gone through all departmental review. Everyone signed off except for the health department at this point. They're going to come take a look at some FRP walls in the kitchen to just make sure that we're putting in the right materials in the kitchen, and then we should be good to go. But everyone has received stamped plans.
Okay. So if we were to approve that, we would do that contingent upon,
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to occupy without a
Yeah.
sign off from the boards either,
okay,
as well, yeah.
okay. All right, anything from the other board members?
Yeah, are you taking a spot of a previous,
This was Pita. It was the fast casual Greek restaurant. Yes, yep. So we're going in there. They're also doing a Greek concept, but kind of building on that. We're going to expand upon the menu a bit. So it's less like a fast casual Chipotle style and more inviting sit-down style restaurant.
fantastic.
Okay, if there's nothing else from the board, being with this as a public hearing, is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak for or against this establishment? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close this public hearing.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, any further discussion or commentary by the board? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the license
Okay.
for Cree Hospitality LLC.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the beer and wine license for Cree Hospitality, doing business as Cree Grill, as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, good luck.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay. Next, we have a series of licenses, and the first is a one-day beer and wine license from Juliana Magbonzi Twinne of 115 Middlesex Street. If you'd come up and tell us, state your name for the record, and tell us what it is you'd like to do.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Daniel Ochery. I live in Dracut, 27 Tremont Road in Dracut, and my parish nod's St. John the Evangelist, where I worship with Juliana Trine. Juliana asked me to come in this evening. She's actually at work. She's a nurse, and she really couldn't leave the patient bedside and asked me to come in instead. I have previously also applied for same license when we celebrated the life of my dad. This is Juliana, who is celebrating the life of her dad, who passed at the age of 104, and she's humbly requesting a one-day beer and wine license, which will happen in the premises of St. John the Evangelist Church. I'm hoping that her application will be accepted.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Okay. Okay, I'll make a motion to
First
approve the
license.
one-day alcohol license for Juliana.
Beer and wine.
It's a beer and wine?
It just be in wine.
Okay, beer and wine. Yeah, it doesn't check either one. Okay. Approve the one-day beer and wine license for Juliana Twene for April 11, 2026 at St. John's Evangelist Church at 115 Middlesex Street.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. Congratulations, you're all set.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, our next license is a common victual license for DRYP, YP LLC, DBA Triangle Deli. Is there anybody here from Triangle?
Oh,
There we
me.
are. Okay.
Toby Villano, 4 Sacred Heart Drive, Nashua, New Hampshire. Longtime Chelmsford resident, raised my children here in town, and the Triangle's always been a store for us, so we bought the Triangle recently and turned it into something a little different.
I've heard you're doing very well over there.
Thank
so-
you, we're trying our best.
Okay,
A lot of work.
so you're here applying for a common victual license, and tell us about your offerings and so on, and
So
how
we're
long you've been-
doing really nice coffee, breakfast sandwiches, and deli sandwiches at lunchtime. Pretty simple, very basic. We do have some market items, some little pastries and donuts and stuff like that. We offer some, regular market items, gallons of milk, orange juice, bread, milk, eggs, stuff like that. So it's very simple what we're doing, but we're really enjoying it.
And this would give you the ability to put your seating in and...
Correct. Yes, it's all grab and go right now.
Okay, perfect.
Which selfishly, I guess we'd like to see somebody eat our food, just to see how they like it. We're hearing good things, but we
That's
don't get
great.
to see it.
That's great. Okay. Any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve this license.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the common victuals license for DYRP. Do you call that?
Drip. It's drip with a
Okay, I
Y,
thought it-
yeah.
okay.
Okay.
So DRIP, UPLLC, Triangle Market and Deli at 148 Groton Road as presented.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you,
Good
Bob.
luck. Good luck.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Hey, take care.
Okay, our next license is a common victual license for Aholite, MG LLC, DBA Aholite Mexican Grill. Am I saying that right?
I believe so.
Oh. Good.
It
took a few years of Spanish in school.
Yes.
Okay, welcome. You're going to be looking for a license to reside at 313 is it Littleton Road, Unit 1?
That's the one.
Littleton Road, okay.
Correct.
They forgot the T-O-N at the end of it. Tell us, state your name and address for the record, and tell us a little bit about what you're looking to do.
My name is Gerson Franco. I live in Grafton, so 70 Samuel Drive. I'm looking to open a restaurant at 313 Littleton. Like you mentioned, it's going to be a Mexican restaurant concept. We only have capacity for 20 seats, so we're looking to keep that. What we offer is quesadillas, tacos, main items. No alcohol for this one, so just looking to get approved.
So just victual, no alcohol at this point?
No alcohol now.
Okay. Okay, and you're looking for 20 seats. I see no concerns from the fire department has concerns, but it's just final testing once you're all set to go. And DPW, Who's looking for confirmation of a final seating plan, must be submitted to the DPW. Applicant needs to confirm no change in use and maintain sewer usage. If additional seats are requested, sewer capacity impact fees would apply, and the verification of Littleton Road sewer main would need to be confirmed. So you're aware of that?
Correct. Yeah, we're
okay.
keeping like the previous restaurant had it.
Okay, excellent. Okay. Everything else looks to be in order. Any comments, questions from the board? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the license.
Yeah, make a motion to approve a common victular license for El Latte Mexican Grill at 313 Littleton Road as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Congratulations. Good luck.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Next item we have up is a Keno's license for Mike's Gas Station. Is anybody here from Mike's Gas Station?
I would doubt it. This is sort of one where they have approval from the state, and only if the town has any objections, and you have 21 days to note them. We've seen this in the past in locations of town with the Keno through the monitoring through the Lottery Commission.
Okay.
So I think it was sent to Pat as the member of the board. And then
Yeah, I
we
don't
put it
know
on-
if everybody else got it too.
Yeah,
but
I didn't see it, but
Okay.
but anyway, but the point is that we put it here in case the board has any comments, because you can see the letter was dated March 13th, and so you still have time. I've never, in my experience here in the town, the board hasn't objected to the Keno to go agencies, and this is the gas station, right at the corner of Acton Road, behind the library.
Right.
You're heading,
Right.
but there've really been no issues there with parking or other activities, so, again, we just put it here as a formality.
Thank you, Paul. I'd entertain a motion then to approve the Keno license.
I
for-
don't think we
You
get to
already approved
approve
it,
it.
you say no comment.
We
Probably
Oh, no comment, okay.
Yeah, we just don't, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
We only say if we don't like it.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. The next item, it's a long description. The next item is a discussion regarding choice housing opportunities for intergenerational and community endeavors, Inc., Choice, a nonprofit organization, and SCG Development Partners LLC, SCG, project eligibility application for the proposed Chelmsford Arms Residences 96-unit senior housing development at 1 Smith Street. So we have very large files here that I've been waiting for since I got the letter in January, but I've had a chance to go through it. And so welcome, if you state your name and for
Good
the
evening,
board.
Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, Attorney Melissa Robbins from Farrell and Robbins. I'm here tonight to give a preliminary overview of the project known as Chelmsford Arms, although I think most of you are very familiar with it and have already supported it through CPA funds and other town votes. Also here tonight with Kirk Fulton, who is the Executive Director of the Chelmsford Housing Authority. We do not have a representative from Choice here this evening. David Hedison was unable to join us. But like I said, I think the selectman is generally familiar with this project. Let me tell you where we are in the steps. The first thing you have to do when you go through a comprehensive permit is get a project eligibility letter. That's the part of the process we are in now. We got the project eligibility letter. Now we go to comprehensive permit, which means we will actually be applying to your zoning board of appeals. You might be looking at these plans and saying, Counselor, there's not much meat to this, and you're right. What will happen now is we have the project eligibility. We'll go to full design so that we can now go to the zoning board for approvals. I did see all the links to your package, and most of them were saying that they didn't have enough information to comment. But once we get to the comprehensive permit process and actually apply to your zoning board of appeals, the rest of those blanks will be filled in. On top of going to the Zoning Board of Appeals, we obviously have conservation in the rear of our property, so we'll also be applying to the Conservation Commission. We also are going to have an abutters meeting on April 13th at Chelmsford Arms. We've mailed those notices out, but as your town clerk has pointed out, the U.S. mail can take a couple more days to get there. So those abutters within 300 feet who haven't received a letter from us yet, please join us. We're going to do it April 13th right at Chelmsford Arms. The board and any members of the public who are interested in getting one-on-one with any of our consultants or Mr. Fulton or Mr. Hedison can answer all their questions person to person that night. We like to do that before we actually apply to the Zoning Board of Appeals. That way, if members of the public or abutters have questions that we can answer before we get to the hearing process, that's a great forum to do that. Just a little bit about the site for anybody that's not familiar. Mr. Cohn, would you just mind flipping down?
I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
Yep, go ahead.
That's okay. I always feel weird asking. So this is these are the existing conditions at the site. I think everybody's very familiar with it. It was built in the early 70s. It's aging. It's an understatement, I think, at this point. If you look at the next slide, you can see that some of this is a project that we just completed. It's extremely difficult to repair these older buildings. It's certainly hard to bring them up to code once we repair them. So the answer here is really to redevelop. The good news about redeveloping is there's lots of good news, actually, but the first is that we're at 64 units now. We will be going to 96 units. So we're really increasing the inventory for our seniors 62 and over to get affordable units in the town of Chelmsford. That also means those additional units will be counted on the town of Chelmsford subsidized housing inventory as soon as we get a comprehensive permit. All of the units will be one bedroom. All of the units will be priced 60% or lower of the area median income. I can give you a breakdown if you're interested in the prices, but they go from 30 to 60%. Some of them are voucher-based programs and some of them are not. You can see the new development is in one structure. If you're familiar with the old setup, there's a few separate disjointed structures. The one structure will be 3 stories. It'll have an elevator. This will allow for better circulation on the site. It'll certainly allow for better fire access. We'll have a designated pickup area in the front of the building for the van and any services that come to the structure. The site is fantastic for energy compliance. If you can see on the next slide, we're designing this to meet Passive House standards, so it's very environmentally friendly. We'll also be improving the stormwater treatment centers. I think that goes without saying, but right now we have 1970s stormwater design out there, so anything we do out there will be an improvement. But we really will be enhancing the site with significant stormwater controls, which will obviously improve all of the wetlands to the rear. And overall, this site, even though we're adding more units, will reduce the impervious that's on site, and it'll be designed to be solar and energy efficient. What I'd like to do is just let Kirk run through the amenities. He knows them better than me, so I will turn the mic over to Kirk.
Thanks, Melissa. Thank you again for having us. I mean, we're super excited about this project. I started working at the Housing Authority about 10 years ago. And one of the first days that David walked me through 1 Smith Street, he's like, we got to figure out a way to get something done here. We got to figure out a way to get something done here. And we've been talking about it for 10 years. So the fact that we're here tonight, and it's becoming real is super exciting for, I think, not only the Housing Authority and Choice Inc., but for the town in and of itself. But again, I think everything that we do at the Housing Authority and with the nonprofit partner Choice Inc. is more than building units and creating units. We want to create service-rich communities, while we're building new affordable housing units. The building does provide a spacious lobby and reception area. They'll be able to see the incoming visitors, from the layout of the new building. There's on-site management offices for our property management team as well as our resident services coordinator permanent to the site. The mail and package room, easy access. I mean, some of these things may seem like, hey, geez, yeah, like why wouldn't it be like that? But anything that we have that was built in 1969 and occupied in 1973 it's not like that, and a lot of our aging housing stock does not provide these somewhat simple amenities that you might be seeing here. Large community room with a kitchen that opens up and an outdoor patio out back. The outdoor patio is an awesome space for outdoor gatherings when the weather is accommodating to that. The vertical circulation hubs, that's design language for elevators and stairwells. There's actually going to be 2 elevators given the size of the building. We don't want somebody who lives on the end of one of the Z-shaped buildings to have to walk all the way across to a singular elevator. So there's multiple stairwells, multiple elevators to improve the accessibility within the building. Shared laundry rooms on each floor. Right now, if you're a resident at Chelmsford Arms, there's A building, there's B building, and the community building in the middle. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've seen one of our residents with a laundry basket on a walker going outside because the laundry is in the community room in the middle of the development. I mean, to say inconvenient is an understatement. So each floor of the building has its own individual laundry room, which is awesome. And then the smaller things, which are super important that the residents love, is a planned library space, salon, wellness center. And this will incorporate all the services that we have at our other developments. You know, we do things like chair yoga. We have a new program with our activities coordinator where they have a chair drumming session to keep the elderly active. And like, sounds crazy, but they actually love it, you know. And these are things we know people love doing because they've proven true at our other developments. And then as we continue to meet with the residents that are going to occupy these units, it will be up to them what they get to see for services as well, because they have a lot of input into what gets done at the building. Generous hallway nooks. Again, it's not just a community room and reception area. Each floor has a space for gathering. And then again, the beautiful outdoor seating area. And then as far as neighborhood fit, you know, the only way to go from 64 units to 96 units is to go up a level. And I think we've worked really well with the design team to kind of soften that by having that Z-shaped building. Again, here you'll see in that overlay, you know, we're not taking up a whole lot of additional space on the site. And we've also been pretty thoughtful about the gabled roofs and dormers to soften that massing of the building, that third floor. No single, the Z-shaped was to avoid like that singular long facade, you know, especially from the Smith Street or Sedgman Street side. But that Z-shape fits really well on the site. And then again, there's already natural screening on the Sedgman Street side from the trees, and then we've added some more natural screening on the Smith Street side as well. But I think we've worked really hard with SV Design, our architectural team, to kind of soften the massing and layout of that third story that's being added. The community benefits, again, 32 new affordable units. 64, the original 64 units that are current public housing units, those will be project-based voucher units. So those will provide extremely low-income elderly residents permanent affordability. And the remaining 32 will be the mix of the 30, 50, 60, you know, 100% affordable, and it provides long-term affordable units. And again, Chelmsford is it's a high cost of living area, you know, it's tough. And having those permanent affordable units is key to the community, and we'd love to be a part of that. Preserves the critical housing. Everything we do, we want to support aging in place, independence, you know, and social activity for the residents that occupy these units. And again, super sustainable, as sustainable as it can get, you know, we're highest level stretch energy code and we're doing everything to passive house standards. That's exciting, you know, it's 100% electric, airtight construction, as sustainable as construction can get. So it's really exciting to be a part of a project like this. It's our first passive house project. We've done a lot of development, but it's our first passive house one, and it's exciting. You know, it's not something everyone's into doing. You know, we're glad to be a part of a community that wants to proceed with construction this way, and it's exciting to be a part of one. And it's an investment in Chelmsford future, you know, modern, safe, sustainable senior housing. And again, a commitment to collaboration between the housing authority, the nonprofit, and the town. So again, after a decade of talking about this in the office with David, to be here tonight presenting about it and talking about it is truly an honor that we're excited to be a part of. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for the applicant or the
I think
attorney?
this is a well-needed project in town currently. I mean, I think it's fantastic what you're trying to do here. Because I know as a community, we are aging, so it's a completely necessary addition.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't want to get into the weeds. I know this was coming up, but I was just curious, as this construction goes on, where's everybody going to go and roughly how long? And again, the Cliff Notes version would be great.
So if you may or may not be aware that 10 Wilson Street, just adjacent to us, is undergoing a large-scale modernization project. That project is scheduled to finish about January 1st, 2027. You know, and the folks at Chelmsford Arms, current residents of Chelmsford Arms, a lot of them are transplants from McFarland. So those people will all come back to McFarland, you know, and in theory, Chelmsford Arms will be vacant at the time of redevelopment. So the relocation needs of the residents are being met through the combination and side-by-side projects. And that's a huge that's a huge piece of getting these things done. You know, we don't want people to be homeless, and we don't want people in hotels. You know, and that's a key piece to it.
So
No, I agree with Jeff. I mean, this is sorely needed, and yes.
So I think the only thing we need to do this evening is offer a vote of, I don't even know that we need to vote this.
we can send a letter
support.
to.
We usually just do a letter, yeah.
We'll send a letter.
We usually
of
don't even do
support.
a vote, but we can.
So you have the, if I'm reading the room right, you have the board support. And we will forward a letter back to the state telling them that you have the support of the community behind you. So we will do that, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members of the board. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Next item is reports and presentations, and we have a report this evening and a presentation from Capital Strategic Solutions with a status update on the study of the 3 Chelmsford water districts that this board initiated last year sometime.
And we have one of the members of the consultant team on Zoom this evening. That's Mary Ellen Kelly, and I believe the other 2 are coming in the room right now. Bill, you're on.
Good timing.
It's good timing.
Right.
You couldn't have been quicker.
All right. We said there was a little break in the action there, so we figured, hey, we'll join you and come in and see how things are going. So well, good evening, everyone, and thanks for having us here.
Good evening. If you could state your name for the record, please.
Sure. My name is William Keegan. I'm a senior project manager with Capital Strategic Solutions. I'm joined this evening with my colleague John DeLuca, who's here in the audience as well, and Mary Ellen Kelly, who's joining us, should be joining us online.
Yep. As soon as she speaks, you'll see her picture
Yep,
come up.
I'm here.
There she is. Okay, great. Excellent. There she is. Okay. So Mary Ellen's actually in Florida right now, so she had to be remote tonight, which is...
She drew the short straw?
Yeah, she drew the short straw, so that's how it worked. But just by way of background, I'm a 43-year veteran of public service, been a town manager most of my life. Know Paul well. Paul and I have worked with each other on the Maya board directly for about 10 years. I retired about 2 years ago, actually almost 3 years ago now. And have been working with cities and towns all across the country, actually, on various projects, this being, of course, the water project. So I've brought with me John DeLuca, who has about 37 years working in the water sewer industry, including the city of Boston, Framingham, and the city of Somerville. Mary Ellen has been a finance director for many, many years. She retired a few years ago as well. Most recently was the finance director for the town of Framingham. That's actually run like a city now. So we're the people that we have with us on this team are actually pretty talented. So the purpose of the study that you've asked us to do is to basically evaluate the 3 water districts that are here in the town of Chelmsford. And historically speaking, how do we get here? Why is there 3 separate water districts? And really it goes back to the history of the town, where there were essentially three villages in the town of Chelmsford. One in the North Chelmsford, the center of Chelmsford, and of course East Chelmsford. And also there were 3 fire districts as well at the time. So they sort of followed that same model. And in the time when they developed these systems, they were based upon the fact that at the time it was the geographic locations of the systems were such that it required that they be built in those areas, because that was the cheapest way to do it at the time, going back to the early 1900s. 1913, I think, was the first one when Chelmsford was first established. But obviously things have changed over time, and so we're at a point now where we wanted to actually take a look at this based upon your request, to take a look at why it makes sense or why it doesn't make sense to actually have 3 water districts in the town of Chelmsford at this point. So we're here to assess the existing conditions and the performance of all 3 water districts, identify opportunities for coordination and efficiency, evaluate the possibility of shared services and consolidation options, and the final is to provide clear and actionable recommendations at the end of the study. So we're at a point now where we're actually starting to move closer to that stage of our project. So the 3 districts, of course, are East Chelmsford, West Chelmsford Water District, and North Chelmsford. North Chelmsford being the largest of all 3. North Chelmsford the second largest, and East Chelmsford being the smallest. All 3 districts are separately legislatively established, so they all have been created by the legislature and they actually run as independent organizations within the community. They all have 3 elected boards, All three have elected boards, and they all three have separate superintendents and operations teams, varying staffing levels in operations, and finally, they all operate independently and based upon their infrastructure status, and there is very little interconnection between the three of them. The work completed to date, we have actually done a lot of the independent review of the bylaws, the various legislation that created this, the various studies that have been done, the work that's been done so far. We've taken, we've actually met with the leaders, the superintendents of all three districts. We tried to meet with some of the staff members as well. We have been successful at least in 2 out of the 3 situations that have evolved. The data collection has been, we're in that process, but we will admit to you it's been difficult at best to get the information that we've needed. In fact, to this day, we've yet to get anything really in terms of data out of East Chelmsford. We've tried multiple different times in multiple different ways to get the information, and unfortunately, they've been non-responsive. So that concerns us, because obviously, if they aren't willing to share the information with us, that means that they're not willing to share that information with their own customers, and that's concerning, and it's a concern it should be for everyone. Preliminary analysis we'll get to in a few minutes, but there clearly is an indication that consolidation is the way to go. We think that's going to be, there's some challenges to do that, but I do think that we do think that it's the way to approach this from going forward. So from a governance perspective, the interpretation of the independent operations with the three, and the coordination between the three is a concern to all of us, because the question comes down to why there should be 3 separate districts, 3 separate boards, 3 separate superintendents, 3 sets of virtually everything. That's really not an efficient way to operate. There's different policies and procedures for each operation, and we don't think that that's a way to proceed. The administrative capacity of each varies rather significantly. There's very little support in East. There is a greater amount in North, and is probably, and of course, as you would expect, since Chelmsford is the largest, they have the largest support staff of all 3. There is clearly opportunities for shared services, whether it be maintenance, administrative services, or even setting financial or doing some strategic planning, if you will, as to how the 3 should operate going forward. The inconsistent strategic planning is a concern as well, because now you're looking at there's different ways and different levels of how the operation is functioning right now, and there's not somebody taking a bigger look as to how the whole system is functioning collectively, and that's a bigger concern to us. So at this point, I'll turn it over to my colleague John DeLuca, who is here to talk to you about the operations side, and Mary Ellen will follow up with the financials, and I'll turn it over to John. Thank you.
Good evening. John DeLuca, Capital Strategic Solutions, and I'm also an operations, a senior operations manager. So I think that's all of us. We all have the same title. So, but I did get a chance to visit with all of the 3 districts, and I can honestly say that Chelmsford was impressive. They seemed to have a good operating procedure. They were doing well. North Chelmsford had no director or superintendent at the time. I'm not sure if that position's been filled or not, but there was someone that the board down there had put in charge, and she seemed to do an adequate job, but they still had some deficiencies with flushing and programs and different things that they needed to really come around on. PFAS is, of course, a big issue with water quality today. So I think we're all pretty familiar with PFAS. Have we heard about that? And so Chelmsford themselves do have 1 plant in operation. And they're looking at 2 more other plants that they're going to build. And North Chelmsford was just in a study, and East Chelmsford had also just secured an engineering firm for some sort of study that they were going to do there for PFAS. We wound up really not, as Bill mentioned, trying to get some more information out of East, and it's been very difficult. They have no records, no computer planning, no documentation. It was very difficult to get what I got out of them, but they could use some different leadership. One of the things about East Chelmsford is there was one interconnection coming from Chelmsford that was cut and capped and disconnected many years ago. So the only emergency connection for East Chelmsford right now is Lowell. And they open that quite frequently in order to fill their tanks if they need to, if they're in a drought area. So that's alarming. And you know, that really needs to take a good look at and see exactly what needs to be done there. Chelmsford runs about 85 pounds of pressure. East Chelmsford, 55. So you need a small pressure reducing valve, push the water into if needed. And that's if Chelmsford had the extra capacity to do that too.
Can I ask where the cap was placed that shut off the old line?
The superintendent for East Chelmsford should have that exact location. He didn't share that with me. I'm not sure exactly
Where
where
was the
it
line feeding from?
Chelmsford into
Center
East.
District?
Chelmsford into East, yeah.
Okay.
You would call it center? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And yeah, I just kind of found that a bit alarming. Lowell's accommodating, and thank them for what they do. But yeah, it's that in itself is something just to be aware of over there. So we had a limited emergencies system maintenance. You know, if we were to get all that system maintenance under one roof, you would save quite a bit of money. And I'm not going to say right now that it's going to be easy to get this done or inexpensive to get this done, but in the long range it's going to. And that is something that, you know, taking a good hard look at would help quite a bit. The asset age and condition varied wildly. There's quite a bit. A lot of capital construction going on with Chelmsford. Kudos to them. A little bit with North and virtually none with East. They were just more reactive than proactive, let me say that. Of course, a lot of the systems are nearing their end of their useful life. Existing interconnections, North Chelmsford and Chelmsford did have adequate interconnections with other towns. That was good to have. But again, they were just, East Chelmsford replan that Lowell connection. And then the capital needs were very insufficient. You know, they really need to do rate studies and find out what their capital needs are. There is no capital programs. There was no capital for vehicles. And you know, how do you set rates if you don't know what your debt's going to be further down? And you really need to have that done, maybe on all three districts, in order to get a good capital construction plan. I would recommend 5 to 10 years. Financials. We can turn to Mary Ellen for that.
That's me. Can people hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the rate structures for all three districts are not hugely different. There's a base charge of some sort for both Chelmsford and North Chelmsford, and there's no base charge for East Chelmsford. But if you look at various usages, I would say North Chelmsford is maybe a little bit higher in terms of an annual cost than Chelmsford. And then East Chelmsford has just 2 tiers, and the annual costs are less at pretty much every level of usage. But again, as John mentioned, there's no input into the maintenance of the system. So at this point, it's just keeping rates low and not having any investment into the system. And once the systems begin to fail, the impact on the rate would be significant. There's not a real reserve in any of the districts, and it doesn't look like it's planned by policy. There's enough revenue generated by the rates to balance the bottom line, very close to it. But should there be any emergencies, then there's really not a significant reserve. If there was a loss of usage, if there were lower usage in any particular year that didn't generate adequate revenue, you don't really have much of a reserve fund there to rely on that to keep your bottom line. In Chelmsford and North Chelmsford, there is a bit of an operating reserve. There's no policy on how to build it, and there's not a policy on how to use it should you build it. Again, that would be something they would want to provide in the future in terms of planning. Debt levels vary considerably, and I have no idea what the debt level is in East Chelmsford. Again, we didn't get any financial information from East Chelmsford at all, despite our requests for it. And John, of course, was able to go physically there and see some of the operation, but we did not receive any financials. The financial response for both Chelmsford and North Chelmsford was terrific. They had plenty of documentation. We got audits, we got budgets, we got annual reports. So the information is there. I think it's well recorded. The accounting process looks really great in both locations. I would say in North Chelmsford, maybe a little bit more detail in terms of the budget that they submit for their annual approval. And Chelmsford does a really good job of preparing their budget. The reports that they also prepare for the state at the end of the year are also compliant with the year-end activities. East Chelmsford has not filed a report with the state. As far as I can tell, I went all the way back to 2014, and there were no records at the state for the annual report being filed by East Chelmsford. Again, that becomes very concerning from a financial perspective, so we have no information with which to evaluate their financial footing. It looks like there's a significant investment starting to happen for PFAS. Chelmsford has taken the opportunity or advantage of state funding, state loan funding. So they have, they're working on loan eligibility with for PFAS supplemental at the state level, in addition to their PFAS funding that they're receiving from the settlement. So kudos to them. They're moving forward with that. The capital funding in both cases, or capital planning in both cases, for North Chelmsford and Chelmsford, is not really part of a long-term investment plan. They're not looking at capital strategically. They're not looking at maybe a 5 or a 10-year term in terms of pipes, pump stations, treatment plants, equipment, et cetera. So taking a long view of what their capital needs are, we think is something that should be considered and really is a requirement for water and sewer systems. Next slide. The budget structures for Chelmsford and North Chelmsford are almost identical. There's a few things that are different. The staffing structure or the employee titles are slightly different, but it looks like a lot of the activity and the responsibilities are very similar. The revenue categories are also very similar. More than 90% of revenue on both sides is from rates. And then a small amount is non-rate revenue. And again, those revenue categories are very similar. But we don't know moving forward how the financial sustainability would be. It is not planned at this point, and we would recommend that a long-term view be taken in terms of budget planning, capital planning, rate structure. Again, once you start looking at capital and budget planning over the longer term, you can build some predictability into the rate structure for public rate payers. And I think that's it for financials.
So some of the emerging themes that we've identified are that there is increasing regulatory demands, whether it be PFAS or cybersecurity or just operational needs in general, budgetary themes that are occurring that really need to be looked at seriously. And this is an opportunity right now that where the pressure is starting to mount on these issues, that you should probably look at these things as one entity as opposed to three. There's one source of funding essentially for the PFAS construction. It makes sense to actually do PFAS for the entire community as opposed to three different entities. It doesn't make any sense to break it up. So in terms of cybersecurity, well, that's a critical issue right now. We're dealing with that primarily because there's third world nations out there, and some of the people in the world that don't like us are actually targeting those types of entities, and unfortunately, it's something we have to pay very close attention to. Uneven infrastructure burdens access all three districts, so there is some, but as noted, probably Chelmsford and North Chelmsford are probably the most, and there's very little in terms of capital investment on, if any, on the East Chelmsford side. So if in fact, so that's a good news, bad news. The good news is that it keeps the rates down now if you're not paying a lot for capital. But the bad news is that when it does happen, it's going to be significant. And the question then becomes, if you spread it over the entire town in one system in terms of the cost versus breaking it up into three separate districts, the impact on the rate to the residents could actually be more beneficial in many ways. So it's something to think about in terms of long-term planning for this. There are opportunities for shared services and procurement across the board, whether you're buying chemicals together or whether you're dealing with employment issues such as repair of the system as things go along, having one maintenance crew as opposed to multiple crews, or hiring private contractors to do that when you could probably do it internally. That makes sense to do that. Potential long-term administrative, operational, and financial benefits for consolidation are clear. Potential long-term administrative, if you have you have virtually no administrative support in East. So you have one secretary and you have a superintendent and you have one other maintenance person. So when that administrative person is out for whatever reason, either sick or on vacation, the office essentially shuts down. So it should be unacceptable to the customer base. I would think that's something, if you need to contact someone, you would think you would have somebody to reach out to and address that. So some of the further analysis that really is needed when you do a study like this is to take a look at the asset condition assessment. Some of the stuff requires a specified engineering firm to do this kind of analysis. We're here to talk about the overall analysis of whether this makes sense or not. But some of these analyses require a specialized engineering firm. The capital planning and cost projections should be done collectively for all three as opposed to just one. That's what we would like to see happen. The budget assessment and rate modeling is something that's in process right now. Mary Ellen's been working on that, and we were hoping to get all three, and therefore we could give you a better perspective and understanding of what that means across the board. A legislative solution would be needed if we were to take all three and put them under one roof. They were all separately created by legislation, so we would create a legislative act to put them into one. It was never our charge, to be clear on this one, to state this for the record, it was never our charge to look at this as an opportunity for the town to take over the department. It was always the idea was to look at it from the perspective of creating one operation, one district, if you will. The engineered interconnection feasibility is something that John and I were just talking earlier tonight about. That would require a specialized engineering firm to do that. We would require an analysis, and we do recommend that gets done as part of the next phase of this discussion, if in fact the town decides that they want to pursue this. But that would be something that should be looked at, because obviously you've got three separate systems and there should be some way to connect all three, but it's going to require an investment as well as some engineered studies to see how that could work. Billing and customer service seems like a no-brainer to all of us in terms of having one company do all the billing, one company doing the system, the system alignments. You've got three separate budgets or three separate rates. You could actually come forward with one rate, which would carry a certain amount of debt burden in it, which everybody would be clear about, so there wouldn't be any surprise about that. Sure, certainly, some people would be impacted more than others, because that would, but if you let the system go as it currently is, and you don't fix what should be fixed over the course of several years, the impact is going to be significant to one of those three versus all three collectively. And then consolidated staffing and organization plan makes total sense to us. You know, you don't need 3 superintendents. You don't need three different crews. You could have one crew handling all the administrative and direction of the entire staff. So far we've completed in terms of we've completed all the interviews, the data collection. We were waiting on ECWD, the East Chelmsford Water District. We actually were prepared to go forward with a presentation that didn't include them because we never got the information. And then all of a sudden, within 2 weeks before tonight's meeting, they said, "Oh, we never got the information," which we did send to the superintendent, but it wasn't transferred over to the person in the office. So they didn't. So we gave them a little extra time, gave them the benefit of the doubt, and now we haven't been able to reach them at all to get any further information out of them. The comparative analysis will be finalized hopefully by tomorrow now, based upon what we have. We're hoping to get all the information out of them by today, but obviously that's just not going to happen. In development, the recommendations that we have for you, we've already started working on those things, but there is going to be a stress for consolidation. We think that's critically important in this day and age. If it's consolidation, we look at it from the perspective that I actually do a lot of work with regional dispatch centers right now, and we're actually consolidating regional dispatch centers because it doesn't make sense to have as many centers doing the same type of work. All right, so the world of consolidation is here. We need to embrace it. We need to take a look at it from the perspective of does it make sense for the customer, who is in fact the water ratepayers of this community, and does that make sense so that we can operate in a much more efficient, much more effective way in producing water for the community. So that concludes our presentation for tonight. We do have some key takeaways that we did want to just share with you. The study is progressing. There were delays due to the data collection gaps. There are clear operational differences that exist between the districts. There are strong opportunities for coordination and efficiency. The long-term sustainability of each district to operate independently appears unlikely. And we say that because of the capital needs and the capital costs and the regulatory requirements that are coming onto these communities dealing with PFAS, et cetera. The consolidation is the most logical path to maintain existing services. And finally, the regulatory pressures will challenge the independent operations. And I dare say to you that, you know, when these districts were all three created during the time they were back in 1913, things have changed rather significantly in the 113 years that have passed since then. So I do think it's an opportunity for now to take a serious look at how this operation works. So that concludes my presentation. Happy to take any questions you might have, and or if you have any further direction that you'd like to give us, we're happy to take that information as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions, comments, discussion?
Yeah, I've had some discussion with some of the board members of the different districts, and their concern was to combine them. It would be cost prohibitive, and it would hurt the current water takers in those specific districts. So I know I'm probably putting the cart before the horse here, but I know that's one of the huge concerns.
I think the perspective that we have on that is it's pay me now or pay me later. And if you pay, and I say that is because if any one of those districts had a major capital improvement or failure of their system that they'd have to fix, it would be only on that district that would pay for it, as opposed to doing a strategic plan for all three systems and coming up with a plan that could be spent over multiple years. I think that would be the better approach.
I think, Linda.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think my concern here, backing away from the just question and even the people question, there's an infrastructure problem here.
Yeah.
And looking back at that now, the investment hasn't been made. So catastrophic failure everybody ultimately ends up paying, even if it's just in one district, right?
That's right.
And, you know, no planning for the future, I think we all know is not necessarily prudent. And I rather do things, you know, I rather see them do things over time, because again, to your point, this is not a town takeover, this is a recommendation for the citizens of the entire community. And the reality is when we can buy things together and we can buy if we're bidding out 5 PFAS plants instead of 1 or 2, you have there's a lot more opportunity. I think, again, the thing that got me, I don't know if it was John that may have said it, but, you know, we've got these specialized assessments that need to be done, and I think that has to be a priority of the districts, or ultimately a consolidated district, because we need to know where we're at and how far away we are from a potential failure. I mean, what happens if Lowell can't provide water to East?
Well, that's a very good
You
point.
know?
I mean, but you do have adequate resources within your own community. And if you share those resources collectively, that would be, again, more cost approval, if you will, if you did that way, as opposed to cost prohibitive.
I just want to follow up on what you just asked. Do we have any long-term agreement? Does East Chelmsford Water District have any long-term agreement with the city of Lowell to provide water as a backup? Or can they just tomorrow say, you know, we're at capacity, I can't help you anymore?
I wish we knew, because the records that we have from them are so sparse. When we asked for the records were in a file cabinet in the superintendent's office in the garage, which was scary. When I saw that, I said, well, even if there was a good agreement, we wouldn't know if it was even in good shape to pull it out and read it.
And do we know how we went about disconnecting the line to Center District? Did Center say we don't want to support backup anymore, or do we have any idea how that disconnection happened?
There was some comment made by the superintendent that at one point the decision was made just to disconnect. He didn't really elaborate for a lot about why, but he said, but there was a decision made because it could have been a difference of opinion between boards. You know, things like that happen. You know, we've all been around long enough to know that those things can happen in these types of situations. But if that's the case, then it seems that now would be a good time to at least look at it again and see if that makes sense.
Sorry,
Yeah, no, and then the last question, Mary, I think this was for you, from a financial perspective, obviously not having East data. But I think, you know, what you read here is from a financial perspective, there's not a whole lot of concern other than all of the revenue is basically coming from rates, and there's nothing built in to support the necessary capital investment. But you know, we're not concerned about these guys being on financially shaky ground. Is that a fair statement?
I'd say for 2
Yeah,
hours.
I would say at least Chelmsford and North Chelmsford, they're reporting correctly. The audits are being done on an annual basis by a legitimate auditing firm. Again, their net positions are in good shape. Not a lot of reserve, but you know they're successful on an annual basis in terms of their operations, their revenues paying for their operations. It's really just the long range view, and one of the things that you don't want to get caught with is lack of investment in the system, and then having the DEP or EPA come down with a consent decree that says you've got to invest XYZ money in this short period of time, which will drive up rates dramatically. If you come up with a longer range plan and are able to do it moderately over time, that benefits the ratepayers and it benefits the system, and it's a lot easier to manage in terms of investment. Don't forget, when you start putting this capital plan together, that the staff and the administration of the water district has to manage it. And you don't want it to become something that is handed down to them from the state, and something they can't manage. And there have been a lot of districts that have been ordered by the state to invest amounts of money, complete capital projects in a short period of time, and it becomes a real challenge to do it successfully. So if you take a longer term view and a strategic plan and a good capital plan, you can start small and build up and begin to, I always called it baby steps. Start with baby steps, and you get into a pretty good sort of a rhythm within the department that says, all right, we start this project this year, we move to phase 2 next year, we borrow money for this at, on a periodic basis, and the financial staff gets in with the operations staff, and it becomes a pretty smooth operation. And that's entirely doable here.
Thank you. I think just the final question, Pat, if you don't mind, is, because I asked that question because I think I'm most concerned with East because they have the fewest level of water takers, right?
Yeah, I think they have roughly 760, right. So a water taker counts.
So
yeah.
Some sort of multi-million-dollar would be a killer for that. Do you have, with all of your collective years of experience, which, by the way, I thought was pretty impressive in the beginning, has this successfully been done in the state where there's been multiple, because again, we can't do this, right? It's got to be done by the legislature, where this has worked out positively?
Well, see, I can only speak to, I have worked in 2 other communities. I worked in Dedham and I worked in Seekonk, where they both had separate water districts. I've never seen a situation where we had 3 water districts under the same community. That's a new one for me. So it's not to say that it's not manageable, it can't be fixed, it can't be addressed, and it can be done going progressively forward. John and I were talking about the point about the borrowing issue, about water and sewer issues are one which probably have some of the longest terms you can have. You can probably up to 30 years, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Paul? I believe you can borrow for up to 30 years to fix these types of issues. And because once you fix them, you don't really have to address them for another 30 or 40 years. But I will say that, and John actually did that with Mary Ellen working in Framingham, where they did like a $52 million project that lasted over multiple years, but they did it a little bit at a time, and before you knew it, the system was fully renovated. So you do have to. I mean, everything's expensive nowadays, but if you spread it out over the entire model of the ratepayers collectively, you can actually lower that burden and lower that exposure.
So doing a consolidation, if that was the recommendation and the choice these guys made, it's not an impossible task. It's most likely the most prudent.
It does require more study and analysis in terms of the system,
Yep.
To make that happen. But I will say, in terms of you could actually, without even doing any of the construction side, consolidation of the staff alone could be helpful. And I say that because I'm actually doing that in another community, in 2 communities right now, where we're merging the 2 centers together. We're doing an administrative merger first, and then we'll do the rest of it after, as the time allows us to do it.
Thank you. I'm good, thanks.
Pat?
I'll be interested to hear the recommendations on how, step by step this could happen, because it's not going to happen overnight.
No, this is not going to happen overnight. No, there's no question. And anybody who's worried about their position in their respective district disappearing overnight, that's not going to happen. But you could be a situation where when people do actually leave, either through retirement or attrition, you could take a position where you'll start looking at more of a regional or interregional approach to addressing those vacancies, as opposed to just hiring a new person.
Sure. Okay, thanks.
I'm just going to circle back and kind of maybe try to summarize where we started and what I've heard. I'm a believer in consolidation. I don't believe the town should take it over. I think we should have an independent, single water district in this town for numerous reasons. And the first one I would cite is parity. parity in the rate paying, parity in the quality of the water, and on, in the maintenance and so on. So it is disturbing when you hear that you can't get the proper information from East Chelmsford Water District. It's a town-wide problem. We have water quality problems throughout the town. I don't believe it's sustainable to keep going like we are, because at some point, the town will pay overall for a single district, potentially. And that's not technically fair to some residents in one part of town that may have to pay for another part of town to have good quality water when they don't. So parity is a really big thing for me. Cybersecurity, we're derelict in our responsibilities right here today in the way that we're operating, and the fact that you can't even get information from one of our districts. This is a major target going forward in the world. And, we need to wake up and realize that. And I'm sure they're each doing their limited amount of due diligence, but I suggest that we should have one entity that we could call upon as a town to say, what have you done? Where are we going? How are you covering these bases? And so on. So I see that as a very lacking area that we should be addressed sooner than later. And then you get into PFAS, and we talk about all different areas of the town. I live in the Center District, but my business is in the North District, so I get letters from all of them. We just got a letter from Center last week talking about water quality from the fourth quarter last year. So when I look at the different districts, again, at some point it's going to come back, and it's going to, one or another is going to have a large problem. And then I also look at things like free cash at one of the districts recently, and I was surprised that it was a very large amount of money that seemed to be going in free cash. And so again, back to the parity, I think we have an issue where people are paying they will end up paying different rates. They will suffer. One part of town may suffer more than another part of town. I guess I would ask if, I know it's going to take a legislative action to make this happen, but would it require a town meeting vote first before taking it to the legislature? Or how would the town, assuming that we're going to have a report that is desirable for consolidation, how would the town progress in the future to enact something like that?
I think ideally you'd want the partnership with the three districts, and have the three districts have their meetings, and everyone rowing together and coming together on a common path before a difficult situation is encountered. So I think that's how it would be. I think we don't have the authority. It's the legislature, has been stated a number of times. So I think the town would basically look to partner with the three districts and everybody moving together, because I think was suggested earlier, it should be a win-win for all. The problem is going to be, as Jeff noted, the relative wins are going to differ because of where they sit today, and somehow that has to be, looked at maturely and clear-headedly, saying, hey, look, yeah, this is how life works. Unfortunately, you're all at a different place, in which we've heard tonight, but collectively, if you all, come together, at the end of the day, the ratepayers, i.e. the Chelmsford residents, will all be better off. And yes, the differential will differ, but the problem is if you continue the way it is right now, there could be a particular situation, and and you've heard it tonight in East, where you could have a problem that's is overwhelmingly challenging to even the entire entity if this continues to go on unaddressed. Again, how much can 775 water takers take on? Not only aside from PFAS or everything else, water mains, you know, other issues, you know, I mean, you know, and what troubles me is there's people in town who live in a particular area and unknowingly, you know, probably didn't know when they purchased their home or if they have the long-term residents, what the condition is of their water district. And you don't want to wake up one day to a you know, a real unfortunate situation where, you know, basically it's a crisis situation in terms of how do we stop the immediate problem, but then if there's a long-term ongoing underinvestment, it may be, you know, nearly impossible to come out of. I mean, the closest parallel we can see is, you know, we run utilities for the town. We run a combined sewer operation, you know, as you know, with numerous pump stations and lines all across town. And as you've seen, we've gone to town meeting repeatedly, updating pump stations, you know, mains and so forth. You know, we run 5 fire stations, you know, you would run them as 5 different entities with 5 fire chiefs or 5, you know, ladder trucks and 5 pumpers and so forth. So it's inherently obvious, but I think the challenge is going to be, you know, I think the reason that they're not getting records is the records probably aren't there. I mean, they can submit a FOIA request and they'd have to comply, and then you go through that song and dance. But the bottom line is, we know that they haven't submitted, East Chelmsford hasn't submitted balance sheets to the Department of Revenue, and the reason there's no debt is because they haven't borrowed anything. So, you know, and that's been going on for years, and so the problem is, then again, there's going to be a day of reckoning.
But there's also a public safety
And there's a
aspect
there's going to be a public
this.
safety
If
thing.
they're
yeah.
at 55
Right.
pounds and the rest of the town's
Right.
at 85
And
pounds,
if there's a major fire and all of a sudden
Exactly.
the system, I mean,
You know,
remember
so-
the situation we had a few years ago, Pat, you were here, when there was a fire on Rainbow Avenue and one of the hydrants didn't work. You remember the delay? And we went through grief and meetings and so forth. You could see what could potentially, you know, you don't have to think too hard to think about what could happen, particularly in East Chelmsford, if there's been a chronic underinvestment in that infrastructure. In that case, as you said, it's a public safety threat in terms of fighting a fire or other, you know, or basic occupancy of dwellings if there are issues with the water quality, because it's not just PFAS. You've got to flush lines, you've got to replace lines, you've got, you know, a reline and so forth. And you're right, the short-term answer, and we've seen this, is East Chelmsford is going to buy their water from Lowell because they can't take on reasonably a PFAS, particularly in the short term. But at that point, they're the tail at the end of the dog, right? You've got a community that's 120,000 people, and you're literally at the end of the line, like the tail, and they're really not going to pay much attention to what the needs are for East. But the bigger problem is it's not just the quality of the water going through, it's the transmission lines and everything else, the hydrants and everything else that runs the system. That is worrisome.
So if the 3 districts decided that's something that they collectively wanted to do, can they just,
They
can
could
go
do it.
that?
And approach
Or does-
and how it would work over time is basically you'd have to have some kind of an assessment or an adjustment by the people in a particular district so that it kind of levels the playing field over time, because you're right. It shouldn't be on, as Jeff noted earlier, the customers in Chelmsford who've made an investment to then subsidize the east portion. So there would have to be some kind of a surcharge or something over time to level the field to make it work. But that's going to be, as you said, that's long-term planning and needs careful financial analysis to get there, because that's what I'm saying. In the end of the day, it's got to be a win-win. But as you're moving to that win-win, there's going to be some disparity amongst billing, because it's only fair to recognize the previous investments or the current investments that some districts may be making and others aren't, and that's going to vary between the 3 districts.
and I think further even to that, and this is why I'm surprised that they haven't been able to sit down and have even an open discussion just yet to say one way or another. Now, you know, it's easy to say that, you know, there's economic disadvantages to combining the 3, but I also look at it and say, with all the consolidation of staffing, equipment, maintenance, all that type of thing, the savings in itself would go forth to help produce and hold rates close to where they are, plus come up with that bigger picture scenario. So, you know, it's bothersome that those discussions can't be had, and it's just automatically, and it's economically, not possible, and I just can't buy into that, because there are a lot of areas of savings here, of opportunities here, that would help offset the costs going forward for the entire community. So,
our goal from the beginning to do this study was not to browbeat anybody, but to expose what the current situation is, and to show people that this is something that really needs to be addressed, and to deal with it proactively.
And Pat knows, it's been a decade, Pat. Prior to this, the water district used to meet quarterly.
Yeah.
And Pat was on the board at the time. I was, over a decade ago, and then it broke down, and they haven't met since.
Right.
And there has been some, again, be careful in a public session, but there has been some discord between the East Chelmsford and the Chelmsford Water District, which led to this strained relationship. And some, and unfortunately, again, nobody wins in this scenario. And so it's not like it's unprecedented that there's been coordination and regular meetings amongst the districts, but that has to return. But more importantly, there has to be a long-term vision in terms of an assessment of what's out there. And that's the issue with Chelmsford Water District. There used to be 4 water districts. There was a South Chelmsford Water District, and Chelmsford Water District absorbed that. And I don't doubt that Chelmsford would be of a mind to consider absorbing East in the short term particularly, but you're not going to absorb an unknown, and that's the issue, is that when and I'm sure Jeff's had discussions with the commissioners and so forth, they can't risk to themselves, their own district or their ratepayers, taking on an unknown entity, and so therefore that's a time of examination and analysis that has to be performed, so that one is to the benefit of the assuming district, but also the people who are in the East Chelmsford Water District need to understand what their situation is, and that's lacking today. And that really is what kind of pushed us, towards, doing this, because you don't want there to be a situation years from now somebody say, well, why didn't somebody say something? Or why didn't somebody do something? And that's part of what we're doing tonight.
is there any way that somebody should legally compel them to provide the information? I don't know whether that would be the town, or if the water takers would have to file a suit, or what it would take to compel something like East Water District to produce the information so that we can complete the analysis. Because
they're all regulated by the Department of Environmental Protection. The state, not only the state legislature create them, the state oversees them. They do supply their water quality reports and so forth. But as you can see, the state hasn't taken an active role in terms of the fiscal condition and stability and operations of the districts, and that's the problem. And when you look at that, because this is the situation in Chelmsford. If you go across central and western Mass, there's districts smaller than there's neighborhood water districts and so forth. And as you said, they were fine at the time they were created, but if they're not monitored like we are, in terms of the Department of Revenue and so forth, looking at it. So right now, again, they've not submitted a balance. You can go on their website, DOR website. There's no balance sheet or submitted that we submit every year for the East Chelmsford Water District going back a decade.
Yeah.
And when I spoke to DEP, it's like, well, that's that's not our concern. And it's like, as long as they don't need to borrow, it's not a. But again, that's just a spiral into a bad place.
That's the reason why they're not borrowing.
Right.
Because they can't produce the information or the statistics to do that.
They can't.
So I mean, we could do a FOIA request, as Paul pointed out, that we could actually do that, but you can't get something out that's not there. That's the big challenge.
Yeah.
So how do you proceed with something like that? Are you guessing, or is there analysis? I mean, what do you do? Do you take the water taker rates and provide your own analysis and because at some point it's going to have to be done.
Yeah, and maybe that's to the point where we almost bring in the legislative delegation and sit with them, because they may have to come from the legislature. I mean, quite frankly, because you're right, it's going to be this pull and pull. But as you know, the legislature does do earmarks, and the state does sort of provide incentives for consolidation. But again, there has to be the first thing is knowing what you got, right? Nobody's gonna move unless they know what they got, and right now, we
Well,
don't,
I
we
wanna
don't
go
know
back-
what we got in East Chelmsford.
I want to go back to Pat's earlier comment about the free cash. Just shows with proper administration and crossing your Ts and dotting your Is, there is an opportunity to get, to upgrade without having to go hard on the water takers under the current system. But, if there's no record or camaraderie between the districts, I mean, it's,
And like most things, people in town don't participate in the district, annual meetings, they don't participate in the elections. It's just sort of running, basically under the radar, and that's the concern.
I dare say to you that you won't hear anything until something major goes wrong.
Right.
And now you're responding to crisis, which is so that's why we're here tonight, to say, look, before there is a crisis, it behooves all three boards to sit down and figure this out.
Yes.
Because if somebody's going to be exposed, it's going to be pretty bad. And we don't want to be, you don't want to be that district. So if you're able to come up with a strategic plan across all three districts and say, okay, now here's our plan. This is, going back to the days of looking for capital plans for the towns that I worked in. So give me the plan as to all the things you need, and then we'll figure out a financing plan for it. It's a two-phase process. Identify your needs first, and then let's identify the way to pay for it.
Agreed, 100%. And I think it's unsustainable the way it is, but I won't belabor that point. I'll ask if there's anything else anybody else has at this point. I look forward to the completion of your project, and this is my last meeting, so I won't be here next time, but I hope this board goes on and pushes to further that consolidation, because I do think it's an unsustainable situation, and eventually it will catch up with us, and it will end up being in a severe parity situation, I think, is what will happen, and when somebody's paying for something that somebody else in town doesn't have to pay for. And I would hate to see the day that somebody coming into this town from another town says, oh, I'll live in South Chelmsford, but I'm not going to buy a house in East Chelmsford,
Yeah.
or anything like that.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just not right.
Yeah, there's a raveling effect that
Yes, there is.
that goes to the whole thing.
And it speaks to property values
Yeah,
as
no
well.
question.
And
So
in the short term, in that crisis, it'll probably be the town responding, the Board of Health, our
Exactly.
DPW, along with everybody, and so there will be a cost to Chelmsford.
yes, absolutely.
My best of luck to you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your service to the community.
Thank you. Thank you.
And best of luck to Paul, too. I'm sure I'll see him before he leaves, but congratulations on your decision as well. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay. That was a very eye-opening report. I was anxiously waiting that, and anyway, okay, here we go. So the next item on the agenda is town manager vacancy and screening committee, and the one after that is town accountant vacancy. I'm good, before we start this discussion, and it's more just a discussion of, where do we go from here kind of thing. I've actually had a couple of people in the past week say, what's going on in Chelmsford? So my response has been, there's really not a whole lot going on in Chelmsford. It's just that people are aging out, and that's what's going on. So that's the picture behind the scenes is, we're all getting up in age and moving on, and I, for one, have had some health problems. That's why I'm leaving. But, Colin Spence is aging, Paul's aging. I don't mean that meanly. I don't mean that meanly.
No,
but we're all at that. No, I didn't mention the town accountant either.
No, it's.
So
there's a bunch of people retiring from the school system in June too. I mean, it's
correct. So having said that, I just wanted to get that out there before we start the discussion. So there is policy as to how to move forward. There's information in the charter, and then there is policy. Actually, that was just updated by Pat Wojcik last year for both hiring the town manager and the town accountant, which I think will prove fruitful at this point. So, starting with the town manager, basically, I'll just read some of this so that so Paul has given his resignation. For anybody in town that does not know this, Paul's given his resignation. He'll be leaving us on Memorial Day this year. So it's coming fast, and so there is guidelines on how to go ahead and screen for a new town manager and then ultimately hire a new town manager. In this instance, because of the expediency of Paul's leaving, the town will need to provide for an interim town manager. So unless I just can't imagine that you could get a town manager hired by Memorial Day. I mean, maybe it's possible, but I can't imagine that that's...
Well, that person would probably have to give notice if they're coming from outside the community as well.
Which for that reason alone
Yeah,
would
so
preclude
it's not gonna
that from
happen.
happening.
Yeah.
So there will need to be a interim manager until that search is conducted. We have some fine people in town that, in Paul's absence, would normally take over anyway. So I think we're in good shape that way as far as having an interim come in. And as I said, I know that there's a couple of positions in town that could easily step up and fill that void in the meantime. And I also have a sense that Paul's just not going to abandon the town if there's a question. Paul
No,
will
and in fact, if
do
you
this.
remember, every July I have to give notice of 3 people who could fill in for me in case
Exactly.
I was unavailable for whatever reason. So we've annually provided that list, and if you look at the list every year, it was always the finance director, the public works director, and the police chief. Obviously, the police chief is sort of out of the equation now, so it kind of those are the two who the board accepted over the years as would be adequate in the event that I was incapacitated for health or other reasons. So that's sort of an ongoing part of the charter and bylaws that we do. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not going to read all of this, but I'm going to read just sections. So when it becomes known that there is or will be a vacancy in the position of town manager, the select board shall begin the process to hire a new town manager. That process will include defining a timeline such that the steps outlined below can be accomplished adequately. Per the town charter, the select board shall create a screening committee. It should include at least one, but no more than 2 sitting select board members, at least 1 representative employee from town staff, and town residents. Screening committees should consist of 7 to 9 members. The process to select members shall be determined by the sitting select board. I'll leave it there. I, for one, believe that a 7-member committee is much more appropriate than a 9-member committee.
Well, Pat, can I just stop you
Sure.
right there? As you just mentioned a few minutes ago, this is going to be your last meeting, and just a week from tomorrow, we're going to have 2 new members on this board.
That's correct.
And I really think that most of these steps should be taken with the new board rather than this board, and then have to change, basically change.
Okay, I'm not
courses in this
offering
one.
any one thing or another. I am still the chair of this board, so I do have an opinion of how things should move forward, number one. Number two, I don't think it's inappropriate to alert the town as to what's going on right here
Absolutely,
today.
absolutely.
So I'm reading this so that the town understands exactly what's going on today, that Paul has tendered his resignation. I'm not offering anything other than just helping the town to understand what's what. I do have an opinion as to, maybe who should be part of the screening committee, not names, but, that's my right. I'm chair of this committee.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So, having said that, so the screening committee needs to be put together. My belief as far as screening committee goes should be, I agree that a couple of select board members, I think it should be just select board members, not the chair. But the select board members, I believe 2 of them, town representative employee, I absolutely am emphatic that the finance director should be part of that committee, because the two of them, Paul Cohen and the finance director, played pivotal roles in bringing our ratings up to par to get us our AAA bond rating and so on. So there's nobody that knows what the other hand's doing more than those two. So I think as a recommendation.
Can I ask a question? Can we only have one representative from town?
No.
Okay.
I don't know. That's up to you guys to decide.
Oh, I didn't know if it was.
It says at least one.
At least one, but
Right.
I didn't know if we couldn't have more than one.
The policy looks like it allows for more than one, but it says at least one. So that would
The
be,
select board gets to decide what the composition is, so, yeah, the select board at that time.
right. So, my recommendation for that would be, that the finance director should be on that committee. I feel strongly that, and I want to put this out there, and this is another reason why I wanted to speak to this tonight, because I want to put the call out to see if there's any human resource professionals in town that would be interested in stepping up to be on this committee, because I think it would be very important to have a human resource professional on the committee. I further think, because of all the work we've done over the years, and Paul might remember this when he came on back in 2007, I think. Six. There wasn't always a cohesive relationship between school and town. That's been fixed. I think there is a good relationship between the school and town, and I, for one, think that the school superintendent might be a member that would be appropriate for this board, for no other reason than they have to work closely together, and budgets align, and the schools have the larger side of the budget. So that's my my take on the selection of the committee. We don't need to talk a lot about the interim, because the next board will figure that out upon seating.
Do we have to post the job?
Not for interim, no.
Okay.
No,
No,
the
I'm
board,
just saying in
the
general.
board would have to meet in a duly posted public meeting and vote someone to serve as interim manager.
No, I'm just saying, do we have to post the job somewhere
Acting.
before we can start
You mean
looking for candidates?
For the interim or for the
No,
permanent?
for the permanent.
Yeah, you've got to advertise that and post that, yeah.
Well, it's
And that's in the policy.
It's in the
It-
policy, how
yeah.
that's created,
Yeah,
yeah, how the
okay.
job description is created, which is done by the screening committee and the select board.
Perfect. Well, that answers that question.
Yeah, so the next board will figure that out. Two of the members, the next two members are here, so they're hearing exactly what everybody else is hearing tonight. So I don't think we're sliding anything one way or another. But I felt compelled as current chair of this committee to put the information out there and let the town know exactly what's going on, and just put forward my opinions on who I feel positions, business people, HR professionals, school superintendent, finance director. That's who I think this makeup of this committee, screening committee should be. And I think that's appropriate. So at this point, other than that, I would say, or ask if there's any comment or question for the board or Paul or anybody else regarding that.
The only thought I have is, with all due respect, would it be appropriate to at least put out there a request for people who are interested in serving on the screening committee to submit a letter of interest by a said date, because in both, because it's going to take time, and therefore, if you start that now, you're going to get a couple weeks head start than if you start doing this,
Exactly why I'm doing this
in
tonight,
April.
Paul.
So, and again, the board at the time can decide how many people and who they are and everything else, but if you say, hey, if you're interested in serving on the town manager's, search committee, in accordance with our charter and policy, please submit an application by April, date, and then, and then that way, when the board can then hit the ground running, when the new board is seated and going, as opposed to saying, okay, let's put the thing out, and then you're into May.
Well, we do have a policy on ad hoc committees, which I assume that's what this would be, is an ad hoc committee. And it says that we should put out the call for, and allow applications for 3 weeks. So I agree with you. I think we can do that part. We can issue that call for that screening committee, and the 3 weeks would be like the 21st. So,
And then that way, when you come out of town meeting, you can hit the ground running, because, let's hope the town meeting only goes 2 sessions, and then on May 4th, you could have those applicants in hand, and you could go right there, appointing that committee and hit the ground running. And that way, you'd have enough time to have those, before the meeting on
Right.
perhaps as early as May 4th.
And more applicants would be advantageous, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So we could
Yes.
look at skill sets of
Yeah.
everybody who wants to
sure.
So
participate.
would the will of the committee support an April 21st date?
Get applications in?
To ask for
Letters of
applications,
interest?
so, I mean, I would assume we'd post something on the website tomorrow, and tonight I would,
That's fine.
publicly proclaim that we're looking for applicants for the steering committee.
That's basically April 20th is the legal holiday of Patriots' Day, so the 21st would be the day after the holiday. It's school vacation week. And then, like you said, this board would then go through town meeting, and then hopefully on May 4th, but certainly no later than May 11th, the board would be meeting. And perhaps one of your first items that night is to appoint a screening committee and then get going. And then, like you said, from there would be the they have to do some steps, as you can see, by the screening committee, which will ultimately result in the question you had, Jeff, about an advertisement deadline for applications and so forth. And then remember, that person, whoever is selected, is gonna have to give notice. And the 60 days that is in my employment contract that we've executed over all the years is pretty standard to what's out there. It's certainly not less generally than 60 days. So again, you gotta kind of bear that in mind, and I think your goal would be to have somebody on board, for the fall, because in terms of after they've given, meaning choosing somebody, because you're gonna go through that budget process and spring town meeting. It's gonna come real fast. And then, soon we'll talk about the accountant position and Darlene's last day as well.
Okay. So is that the will of the committee then to, can I publicly announce that we are looking to fill positions? And I guess, is it possible that we could say whether that's going to be a 7?
No, they can decide that. Just get anybody who's interested, get them in.
I think it's
The next board will decide on how many.
Yeah.
Okay.
right.
I don't think there's
I think
any reason
putting it
we
out
can't.
there for a letter of interest in it, right? Because again, the more choices we have and the more time we have, I want to have a good selection of people. And I think that goes for town employees as well as residents.
Okay.
And
So-
that meets the policy guidelines, so.
So then officially, I will ask the general public that's viewing tonight, and anybody that is viewing, to mention it to your neighbors, to your counterparts, and so on, that the select board is actively seeking members for a screening committee to replace the current town manager, and we'd like to see those applications or letters of interest in by April 21st, so that the next board, once town meeting completes, can go ahead and pick up the work of
So
replacing.
that will go to the residents of the community. Should we have a similar notice go out to the town employees for the same deadline and same thing? Because the same thing that talks about having at least one representative employee from the town staff.
Yes.
So ask any town staff who's interested to also apply by April 21st.
And maybe they should indicate if they're applying as a town employee or as a resident.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So I think, yes, a note
Okay.
should go out to all the town employees for anybody that may be interested. And I would also like to see, I mean, we just asked publicly, but I'd also like to see something on the website.
Oh, yeah, no, we'll do that. We'll
like
get that out tomorrow.
To
Yeah,
just
we'll
put it
work on
up
this.
there
We'll get that out
so
tomorrow.
anybody visiting the
Yep.
website would see that immediately. And I think that gets you off the ground in a good, timely manner, so.
And when it cuts the town website, it hits social media and everything else, and probably we'll probably ask the Lowell Sun if they would put a little thing in as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so having gone through that, that's what I wanted to accomplish tonight. Is there any other questions, comments, or discussion related to the town manager appointment?
Yeah, I'd like to just make a comment, and this would cover the town accountant too. So, as Paul mentioned earlier today, it was 2006 that he joined. And I remember that time frame pretty vividly because I was working here in town, took a job up the hill over at Brooks, and then the economy fell apart in a few years. So I was just thinking about what Paul's done over these years, and he's led the town through an economic downturn that lasted a long time. He brought us through COVID, and he brought us through to today. And our town is in excellent financial shape. I know we've got challenges coming, but this is, I feel, almost into my veteran season. My rookie year is almost over. That this is probably one of the single most important positions and jobs we're going to do over the next 6 months. So, I do appreciate what Paul's leaving us today, and I wanted to make sure that I publicly said thank you to him for that. And I look forward to working with the board and our new board members and the residents and the town employees to trying to fill this position. And I can tell you, I live across the street. That corner office light is on awful late, an awful lot, and he shows up in an awful lot of things. So we've got some pretty big shoes to fill. And I do really encourage the employees and the residents to apply to be on the screening committee so that we can put together the right group to fill Paul's shoes. I won't say replacing him, but to fill that role and pick up the baton and keep running. So thank you, Paul. I appreciate all the work.
Anything else? Okay, the next item on the agenda is talking about and discussion for filling a town accountant vacancy. And so with that, the town accountant, Darlene Lucier, has tendered her resignation. And she will be leaving, she's given formal notification that she will be leaving on September 7th, 2026. I think this allows for the fiscal year to end at the end of June, and then that position stays on to close the book, so to speak, and move on and complete the audit such that the new person coming in can see how everything gets managed, and hopefully that position can be replaced prior to the current town accountant leaving, so that there is some time and overlap between the two, such that new person can understand the chart of accounts and everything that goes through that accounting department. And we also have some other interesting things in this town that some other towns don't have, in that our accounting department does their own payroll, et cetera. So there's a ramp-up period. So I think the town accountant position should be looked at, and I think, it's like everything else, with the town manager has to give notice, the town accountant would have to give notice, and any good town accountant is likely not going to leave their position before the end of June or their fiscal year. So I don't know, how that plays out at the end of the day, but my thought is if you could get somebody here for at least the month of August and those few days in September, I think that would be beneficial to the town, or even earlier if we could. And I'll read quickly as to how that works. The policy provides guidelines for the process to hire a town accountant. When it becomes known that there is or will be a vacancy in the position of a town accountant, the select board shall begin the process to hire a new town accountant. That process will include defining a timeline such that steps outlined below can be accomplished adequately. The select board chair or their designee shall meet with the incumbent town accountant to gauge that person's willingness to accommodate a transition period with a new hire, and I believe that's been discussed at this point. So this information may have some bearing on the experience needed when evaluating potential candidates. The select board chair or designee shall meet with the human resources director to develop advertising to be used in recruiting the town accountant, including where and when ads are placed and other necessary details. And I believe we have I mean, there's job descriptions for all the different positions here, so I think, maybe there's something that might need to be tweaked to bring that up current, but I believe that even that information could be ready to go very quickly, so I think there is an urgency to this one, just so that that position can be in and there can be some overlap when the time comes. So, having said that, is there anybody else that cares to add or comment or discuss that?
So again, I definitely, like I said with Paul, since Darlene's here in the room, thank her for those 26 years worth of service. There's a lot of tribal knowledge that will go, but this accounting position too is, I think it's a little bit more wonky. It's debits and credits, it's municipal accounting. So replacing Darlene is not something we're gonna, I'm looking to do. I would like to see somebody that can, fill those shoes and continue to work with the town and the town manager and the rest of the finance staff to help us continue to maintain the bond rating that we have and to submit good books on time. With a, accounting background adjacent role, it's a critical job and it's critical to the town's fiscal success, which allows us to be successful in those other areas. So I do want to thank Darlene for that, and I appreciate that, as she's stated, she'll stick through the audit and get us to that, get the new person to the next phase. So thank you, Darlene. That's all I had.
Anybody else?
Yeah, my suggestions on this is, I think when you advertise it, put in the advertisement the expected date of commencement of work, because as you noted, she's going to be departing in September. If you put an advertisement out in April, you want that person to know we're looking for somebody for that August timeframe, because like we saw in Darlene's contract, she had a 60-day notice provision as well, which obviously, like myself, she fulfilled. But you want that person to know that, hey, look, yeah, you're going to see this advertisement in April, but we're looking for somebody for October, so that way you, as you noted earlier, you as where you are now can close out your fiscal year, have a transition, and work with the outgoing accountant, because that's just so critical, in addition to the responsibilities of the job, because, everybody's, everybody wants to honor their agreements with their communities, but also know that they're going to a situation that's an effective transition. So I think that would be key, not the responsibilities, but also saying, that our incumbent accountant will be retiring, in September. We like some transition period, and therefore we would. I mean, you think about it. If that person had to give 60 days notice, they'd be giving notice by the beginning of July, which is not a bad thing. It's just that just sort of puts into perspective that the town has to advertise, interview, select, reach agreement, and then give notice, so that, and again, if you lay that out into the notice that, hey, look, we'll look for somebody to start in September, we recognize the transition, and this is how it'll go. So again, I'm sure that in the next, short couple of weeks, that will all be pulled together by, the select board and HR director and so forth to get this going. But, yeah, because again, April 1st is, Wednesday. So you're, 5 months away.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is Select Board approval of National Grid utility easement at 295 Acton Road Fire Station site.
Yeah, just real quick, the board did a similar, this is for the South Acton Fire Station site. A few months ago, you did a similar one for the West Fire Station on Old Westford Road. So basically, National Grid needs to have the grant of easement provided. This is also going to, town meeting and so forth to, so they can begin their engineering and plan design work. So that's why it's here before you this evening. Again, this is all fine. Why this is happening is because we're going from overhead power to the buildings to conduit.
So is it appropriate to do this before town meeting approves the easement?
Here's what we want to do. We want to get this to National Grid so they can do their engineering, because they won't start, and then, once we go to town meeting, we'll circle back, Pat, and then have the board do it. But we need National Grid to get going, and the problem with National Grid is they won't get going without the documents. And so that's how I think that's how we can do it. And part of the reason for that is because of the construction schedule for the fire stations. Is tomorrow the east and south fire stations will be closed. The next meeting you'll have bid awards for demolition, and all that work can proceed. But as you can imagine, like any other large utility, National Grid doesn't move quickly, and so we don't want to have any issues with the easement. So, yeah, we just like we did a couple months ago. We'd like your vote. We'll send the materials to National Grid, and then we'll go to town meeting, and then we'll circle back with National Grid.
Okay, so we need a formal
Yeah.
vote on this.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, is there any comment or discussion regarding this request? Okay, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Okay, I'll make a motion to grant an easement from the town of Chelmsford to Middlesex Electric Company as described at 295 Acton Road in Chelmsford.
I'll second that.
And I'll, nitpicking, but it's Massachusetts Electric Company. You had said Middlesex
Oh, I
Electric
did?
Company.
Well, that's
Okay.
how it's
So-
written in, I'm sorry, it's Mass Electric, yeah.
It's Mass
Okay.
Electric, so.
All right.
Anyway, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, select board policy votes. The first one is a policy regarding disposal of surplus property under a $10,000 policy. We've seen this already. I think we talked about it. Is there any comments or discussion regarding that policy?
Basically the same thing we talked about a few weeks ago, right?
Yes, yeah, we saw these a couple of weeks ago, so.
Yeah, the policy is we table it till the next meeting. So
Hopefully
this is
everybody's
it.
up to speed now,
Yeah.
and we're good, but I am okay with this as written, so.
Yep.
So if, we could vote all.
You probably do all of them.
Probably
I
do
haven't
all
heard
of
of
them at
any
once.
changes to any of them, yeah.
Yeah, okay, why don't we do that? So that was the first item. The second item was contract bid award, which we did have some discussion about last meeting. And it basically simplifies things and basically says that when a bid award is made by the town manager should provide the following information when requesting approval of that award. And one would be the purpose of the bid solicitation, 2 would be the number of names of the bidders responding, 3 would be each bidder's proposed bid amount, 4 would be recommended award, and 5 would be bid award amount. So is there any questions, comments, or otherwise on that policy change? Okay. The next item would be agenda procedures, and this really simplifies there was a very specific agenda, and it read something to the effect of the agenda shall normally consist of call to order, public service announcement, public input, et cetera, et cetera. These days, things change, consistently, and it is important that the chair and the town manager have the ability to put forth an agenda that's appropriate. So it talks about when the agenda should go out to the chair, and then when it should go out to the board, and so on. So I have no problem with this policy. Is there any question or comments?
Cleans it up.
Cleans it up, so, okay. Meeting posting and minutes policy is the next one. And this is a lengthy document, but again, it streamlines the process. And basically, in simple terms, and this is how we mostly approach it. It talks about what meeting minutes are and how they should be transcribed, and basically says that that meeting minutes should not be construed to be an actual transcript of the meetings and so forth. And and then it talks a little bit about the executive session meeting minutes. So, again, I'm okay with this, and I would ask if there's any comments or discussions from the board. Seeing none, we'll move to the next one. The next one would be boards, committees, and commissions onboarding. So this just talks about how to go about appointing new committees and authorities and commissions. And it speaks, I believe. I'm not sure it differentiates between, what's the town manager. I believe it does. Nope.
Appointing authority, the first thing.
The appointing authority, yeah. So, most boards in this town, all boards in this town are either appointed by the town manager or this committee, unless there's a subcommittee of another committee. But anyway, this speaks to that, and I'm fine with the changes here as well. So, any comments or discussion on that?
Pretty much all we did was eliminate the redundancy in the policies, right?
Right.
Right. Yep.
Yep.
So, having put all that out so everybody knows what we're talking about, I would entertain a motion to approve these policy revisions to permanent policy.
Make a motion that we approve all the policy updates as presented.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or comment? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, the next item is approval of the order of layout and plan for Proctor Road as a public way.
Real briefly, last meeting, the board voted its intent to lay out Proctor Road. We reached out per the statute in writing to the planning board. The planning board considered it last Wednesday. They voted to recommend approval of the layout of Proctor Road. So your final action this evening is to approve the order of layout of Proctor Road, and then the final step will be town meeting approval for acceptance as a public way. So you have the order of layout as presented for you.
We signed this already.
No, this is the one for the order of layout. The other one was the intent of layout.
Oh,
so you
okay,
signed it,
okay.
yeah.
So we'll sign this.
Wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, it's in the packet, yes.
Yeah,
You
that's
signed
right.
it-
That
you
was my
signed it
question.
tonight,
So we've
yeah.
already signed.
But 2 weeks ago, you signed a different one.
Yes,
Yeah,
okay, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so we simply need a vote here.
Yep,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay, any discussion on what the town manager has said? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the order of layout for Proctor Road.
Make a motion that we approve the order of layout of Proctor Road as presented.
I'll second that.
You have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
And the next item up for bid is Town Manager Bid Awards.
Yeah, if, Public Works bid awards for your approval this evening. The first one is for traffic markings. These were all sealed bids, and they're seeking your approval this evening. For traffic markings, 3 bids were received. The lowest responsive and responsible bidder was Pro Finished Lines Company out of Plymouth, Mass, in the amount of $99,950. As you can see, there were 3 bids that were received from $99,950 to $106,750 to $122,035. Their references were positive, and the Public Works has previously worked with this company. Do you want me to do them individually or go through them all?
I think we can probably do them all at once.
Okay, all right, so that's the issue of the traffic markings. On the hot mix asphalt, again, the estimated cost of $50,000. 3 bids were received here. The lowest responsible bid and the lowest bid was submitted by Newport Construction out of Nashua, New Hampshire, in the bid amount of $35,000. Materials will be picked up at 20 Commerce Way in Westford. Again, the town has previously worked with Newport, and references are positive, and therefore we're seeking to award the contract for the supply hot mix asphalt to Newport Construction Corporation. And you can see the bids were pretty tight, between $35,000 to 40, basically almost $41,000. The next one is ADA ramps and curbing. Here, there was much more bid activity for an estimated project of $72,550. 9 bids were received. The lowest responsive and responsible bidder was Antonellis Construction out of Newton, Mass., and a bid amount of $49,220. And DPW has received positive feedback from the references. So therefore, we're seeking the approval of the bid award for ADA ramps and curbing to Antonellis Construction. You can see the bid amounts there varied from the $49,270 up to $102,376. And you can see, many of the bids around the $60,000 to $70,000 range. The next one was, and final one, is hot mix asphalt berm under the supplies. Again, this is a estimated $30,000 annual project for the upcoming construction season. 2 bids were received. The lowest responsive and responsible bidder was CVD Paving out of Saugus, Mass. Their bid amount was $35,860. You can see the other bid amount was $38,000. So again, it's telling you the good indication of the market. And DPW has worked with this contractor in the past with positive results. So again, we're seeking your confirmation of the approval for hot mix asphalt to CVD Paving Company. And then the final one is McCarthy School Roof. This is obviously a significant capital project with a town meeting appropriation of $3.6 million. This is a project that involved sub-bids and general bids. There were 6 general bids received. The lowest bid received was from WPI Construction, and this is the company that we're fortunate enough, we're currently working for the town on the South Row School roof replacement project. So again, we're seeking the approval of the bid award for the McCarthy Middle School roof project to WP Construction of Webster, Mass. In the amount of $2,078,000. And as you can see, the bids there were very close and competitive. You basically at 2.1 million, 2.115, 2.3, it's really close. And then you have an outlier, obviously, at close to $3 million. So again, the market is continually to be favorable in terms of number of bidders and obviously with our budget. So again, I respectfully seek your confirmation of these 5 bid awards this evening.
Thank you, Paul. And the market is tightening a little bit, though, so
Yeah,
it's
timing is everything.
So I thank the town authorities that got this out timely, because the market is starting to tighten up a bit. But any discussion on Paul's description of the bid awards?
No.
Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the 5 bid awards.
Make a motion to approve the bid awards for traffic markings, the supply hot mix asphalt, ADA ramps and curbing, and hot mix asphalt berm, and the McCarthy roof replacement project as presented.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you, Paul. All right, the next item on the agenda is town manager reports.
Yeah, real brief, because I know we've had a long meeting and we could see it coming. Just one thing, last meeting, remember, we voted to send earmarks to our legislative delegation in the House of Representatives for the upcoming state budget. I did do that, and as directed by the board with the different categories and so forth. I spoke to Representative Cataldo. He's still uncertain, how much the House is going to be able to provide because of the state's tight fiscal condition. And what he was able to do, though, is the House of Representatives did approve a supplemental budget bill. And he did insert one of the requests that we had suggested, which is the $25,000 to be expended for design improvements to the Chelmsford Center traffic signalization. And so again, he was able to get our other 2 reps to co-sign on this amendment, which has been included. So now the action moves over to the state Senate, and then the expectation is that this earmark will remain in the final supplemental budget bill that's adopted by the legislature, and then again, in a couple weeks, we'll see action in the House on the state operating budget. So again, this was sort of an opportunity that arose, and Representative Cataldo, recognizing the challenges, was able to secure an amendment for us in this bill. And again, you know, that's how the legislative process works. So I just wanted to notify the board of that. And that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Paul. The next item is town manager appointments, and what's old is new again, and we welcome back an old friend. And
Yeah,
Paul?
I'm seeking your confirmation to appoint Dave McLaughlin to the Conservation Commission for a term ending 6/30/2028. David had served on the commission for over 35 years and had to step down due to family concern. That, you know, he's now able to come back and wants to contribute, and I think we'd welcome him because we have lost the institutional knowledge that Carl Bischoff had, and this, quite frankly, was the only application I received, but it was certainly well received, and so again, I would seek your confirmation to return Dave McLaughlin to the Conservation Commission for a term ending June 30th, 2028.
Any discussion on?
I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. All right, I'll entertain a motion for that
Okay.
appointment.
Make a motion that we approve the town manager's appointment of Dave McLaughlin to the Conservation Commission as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, meeting minutes. Select Board, we need to approve the Select Board meeting minutes of March 9th, 2026. Any corrections, comments, or otherwise? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from March 9th.
Make a motion to approve the Select Board meeting minutes from March 9th, 2026.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. Okay. Select Board member liaison reports and referrals. Start with you, Pat.
Okay, just have a couple of things. Since our last meeting, Congresswoman Lori Trahan has announced her Service Academy nominees, including 2 from the town of Chelmsford, Athrika Varma, who is going to the Naval Academy, or was nominated to the Naval Academy, and Ethan Lee, who was nominated to the Air Force Academy. There's still a process to go through before they are officially accepted to those academies, but they have gotten through this step, so congratulations to them. Also want to congratulate new Chelmsford Police Patrol Officer Ryan Butler, who was sworn in just about a week ago today, so you'll see him on patrol soon. Also want to send condolences to the family of retired firefighter John Robinson Jr., who passed away last week. He was very well known in the community, as was shown by the outpouring at his wake and his funeral that were held at the end of last week. So our condolences to their family. And this being our last meeting before the next election, I want to acknowledge 2 folks that are voluntarily giving up their positions as elected officials. The first being Maggie Marshall, who's a library trustee, served 30 years as a library trustee. I guess it's probably over by now, but there was a reception over at the library for her, so congratulations to Maggie. And second, Pat Maloney, who want to present this gavel in recognition of your tenure as chair.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Appreciate you all. Thank you. Thank you. Anything else?
That's it.
Jeff?
Okay, I'll try to be brief. The only thing I really have to report on is the parade committee met about a month ago, and Paige started the work of getting the new banners out to the public, and hopefully we'll get a nice return from those. I love them. I think they look fantastic. I think once people see them up, they're going to be impressed. So that being said, we're going to miss you on the 4th, Paul.
I know.
You can still come.
He might still invite him. He might come.
Well, you good?
Actually, one other thing, we all had the opportunity to go over and see the new Prime 41 restaurant, and I have to say, it is a welcome addition to the town. I think if you haven't been there, I think people are going to love it. That's just my opinion. Also, being Holy Week, I just want to wish everybody a happy, blessed, and safe Easter.
Thank you, Jeff. Aaron?
Sure. I'll cover ahead to two assignments since we last met. We had the age-friendly Chelmsford, the implementation committee meeting, and again, active group, and I think we have one. We're only short one slate now, but a tiny bit of shameless plug. We talked a little bit about the opportunity I had with Maria Companion from town clerk's office. We got to do Deb's age-friendly show, talking about becoming, supporting the elections by becoming an election volunteer. And, Maria talked about what the process was and how the town clerk's office runs election. And I had the opportunity to share my experiences doing that for a lot of years until I got the chair at this table, at which point I had to temporarily retire that position. So that Chelmsford Telemedia did a great job in putting that together for us. So if you get a chance, if you're interested in how elections work in the town or what the experience is like being an election worker, I would recommend you spend 25 minutes and do that. And then the planning board met, as we spoke about earlier. They did vote on the Proctor Road, so that was that could come back before us tonight. And the elusive, I shouldn't say that, but a little tongue-in-cheek, gap analysis that they're working on with the Planning Board, Board of Health, and Conservation, that's coming up for review. And then we talked a little bit about the Managed Growth Strategy Group, and Evan's currently working with NIMCOG, who's supporting us in that process right now, to look for some grant money, because that project, which is arguably at this point going to rival a little bit of the strategic plan, and the stuff that we've started to discuss with NEMCOG and as a group, I think is going to be really interesting in helping chart the future of what we think we'd like to see, chart the future of where we'd like to see Chelmsford go. And it's going to be a very data-driven process with a regularly large community that so far has made their meetings. Usually they fall off when they're that big, but everybody on that committee is pretty committed, so I appreciate the opportunity to work with them. So, and then they continue to get ready for town meeting, as we all know that half the articles are zoning articles, so I think Chris and the team are ready to present to all of us. So that's all I had, Mr. Chair.
You're much more well-versed in this than I am, but did we just get some pretty major musical awards through the schools and all? We in that competition?
Yeah, and so that they didn't make it to the state finals this year, although God bless them, they took 40 kids in to go see all the kids go in and they see what the finalists were, and they took off on Thursday night and came home Saturday night. But we did get several awards, and there were several kids that for the play that we put on this year. So yeah, that the theater group is pretty active.
Speaks to the excellence of that
It really
group.
does. It
Yeah.
just goes to how we support arts and music. I mean, I think our schools are known to be great schools, but those programs in particular, and again, our sports teams, especially the baseball team this year, but be remiss to not remember the efforts that they put together there. So, but I appreciate the reminder.
Excellent. Okay, all set. School Building Committee for the Parker Middle School replacement met last week. We had our regular meeting before we had not quite a visioning session, but more of an update on the project. So we're moving along. We will meet April 16th, I believe, is the next time we meet. And at that time, is it April 16th, Paul? So at that time, we will be voting the final option to move ahead with what we've selected as the option. I believe that option will move forward as a 4 through 6 option to be built on the fields at the existing Parker Middle School. We submitted a 2,500-page document a couple of months ago to Mass School Building Authority. That came back with comments, and that we had a period of time to respond. We responded the other day, so all of our comments are back. We await now their approval to let us go into that next area. So we're hopeful that on April 16th, we've got the go-ahead to move ahead and actually select the option that we're going to work on, and then we can really get to work and get to business with the architects and owners, project managers, starting to develop the building and the site and costs and budgets so I'll be staying on that committee. I've been asked to stay, and I'll remain chair of that committee for the foreseeable future. But I kind of want to let everybody know this will be the biggest project Chelmsford has ever embarked upon, larger than the sewer project. We will receive considerable reimbursement should the town elect to go ahead with it. But I also want to say that we haven't built a school in over 50 years, and it's time that we start taking care of the kids. And I heard some folks get up at town meeting last year saying, how disappointed they were and how bad they felt for the firefighters and so on, and I get that. They got their project approved. Now it's time for us to focus on our children. Plain and simple. We haven't done it for a long time. We did a small, minor, $32 million project back in the early 2000s. It's time. It's just time. We need a new school. It speaks to your property values. It speaks to our education. It speaks to so many things in town. So I'll keep harping on that every chance I get. I hope this board will go on and keep talking about it, because it is such an important project. So that's what's going on with the school building stuff. So other than that, I normally don't go on about certain things, and I don't like to waste time, but since this is my last meeting, I just want to say a few things on the way out the door. First of all, I want to thank John Curlin for stepping up and taking the seat. With how I felt about leaving, I felt very comfortable that such a competent person was taking over. So thank you, Mr. Curlin, for that. So I was mentioning to Paul earlier that I've had a couple of people come up to me this week and say, "What's going on in the town of Chelmsford? Why is everybody leaving?" And it's like, so it's where there's not a mass exodus of any type going on here. It's really just that we're all getting a little bit older, and either through retirement systems that don't work for people anymore, or myself, where I've just gotten a little older and had some health issues, and just want to get out and do some things. So I want to thank Paul. I want to thank Colin Spence for his time, because the last chance I'll get to publicly thank him. I want to thank Darlene Lucia for her time, and so on. But I want to just talk a little bit about my relations with some of these people, and specifically Paul for now. And we've been working together since Paul came here. We were just finishing up the initial school project, and we've gone on. Paul formulated the permanent building committee after that, and so we've done a lot of work in the town over the years. We've done fire stations, we've done town halls, DPWs, and I will say that for our expenses and costs and what we're into all these projects for, we've done it again through the support of people like Paul and Darlene and John Souza and the finance people helping us put together what we needed to really do some amazing projects. And, you know, the DPW, I wasn't thinking of that, but, you know, our initial budget for that when we went out for the budget was $30 million. I think today, all in, still, we're $14–15 million. You know, when Westford was building a $30 million fire headquarters, we were building a $12 million fire headquarters. So we've been fortunate to have some really good people here to make things happen. And so I want to thank you for your expertise, Paul, and your consistency and just hanging with it. And you know, you bought us a AAA bond rating. You did this all through when people were coming at you, trying to get you removed, and you had to put up with the BS of prior boards doing that to you. But you kept on, you did the right thing, you kept moving us in the right direction, and I thank you for that. Now, as far, you know, I want to thank Colin Spence for his time. I want to thank Darlene Lucy. I've worked with Darlene since 2000, maybe, when we started the school projects. Always had timely information, always had timely budget information, always, you know, got the bills paid on time, kept the contractors happy, all of that. So, you know, the team that was here, and I'll throw Gary Persichetti in on that as well, but the team that was here was and is exceptional to this day. So thanks to all of you. And then when I talk about, you know, some of us are all getting old, just briefly, back in the late 90s, I think my oldest was 9 or 10 years old. And so Dr. Moser at the time, who was the school superintendent, was out pushing for a new high school, and I went to a meeting and knew a little bit about construction and business, having owned my own business. So that's when I got involved back in the late 90s. And so it's been a long run. I appreciate the support of the town that I've gotten over the years. And it's been an amazing, amazing time. And I couldn't be prouder of the things that were accomplished. But I also want to mention, and I want to talk to the people at home with young kids and the younger crowd. We need help. This town needs young blood. We need assistance. You know, anybody with young kids should absolutely be paying to the school project. But we need help across the board. And so I'm going to sit here tonight and appeal to the town and its residents to please get involved. All you folks, and I know how hard it is when you're in your 30s and 40s and you're trying to manage your family and all your business prowess and so on. But there's so many committees in this town that you could volunteer for that don't require monumental work. So, my final appeal will be, please, to the general citizenry of Chelmsford is get involved. Just get involved. It doesn't take much. It's something you can be proud of. It's honorable, and so please. We'd love to see more participation. We'd love to see younger participation, and get rid of all of us old farts that have been doing this too long. So, having said that, I think that's about what I have for this evening, and I thank you all for you know, all your support and everything over the time. And with that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
So the old parts can get out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's bedtime.